film, Robert Smigel and Carol Kane.
Grandkids, I think, over here, so I was trying to see where they are, but I don't see them. Henry and Harley are here. Hi. Is your mama here? Happy? Sorry.
It's a family affair tonight. I'm so honored to be here with all of you to talk about what's shaping up to be one of my favorite films of the year.
Thank you.
It's really an incredibly special film that I need to not blab and just dive into my questions. I have a lot. Just to start off, Nathan, thinking about sort of the concept or the sort of thematic building blocks of this film, I wonder if you could start by talking about convention and sort of the idea of convention and sort of how, what drew you to the idea of this film that explores convention from these different lenses, whether that be the sort of the ways in which the rules of a religious tradition can offer comfort and transcendence, but also the ways in which maybe transcending a convention can itself offer a kind of relief or meaning.
Well, that's an extremely thoughtful question. I really appreciate that. I feel like the way I work is much more intuitive, and it's never in my head. It's always in my heart, unfortunately, or fortunately. I have no idea. This movie started because of a series of events that occurred pre-COVID. I was shooting a documentary about my mother. She'd been in all my earlier movies, and I cut her out of one, and she would not forgive me. So in order to make it up to her, I was like, I'll shoot a documentary about our relationship and about you being in my movies. And she agreed to it. And I was following her around, and we went to her temple with her. And my mother grew up in this secular household. Her parents were, socialists. She was a red diaper baby. Her parents met at a socialist summer camp. So it's like, religion, like they were Jewish, culturally Jewish, but they weren't at all observant. So it was unexpected. First off, I was a bit shocked that she had joined a temple, but my parents had moved to a new town and they were looking for some sense of community. And then, the Jared Alterman, the camera guy and I, and producer of this, we went into the temple with her and we found ourselves in a B'nai Mitzvah class. She was gonna get her bat mitzvah, and I was like, what the fuck, Mom? So I went, this was in Kingston, where her temple is, and I went back with this to New York City, and I'm like, trying to figure out what this means. And I relayed this story to my friend and my publicist on multiple films, Adam Kirsch, and he's like, there's a movie there. And I'm like, there's no movie there, Adam, it's nothing. And he's like, yeah, it's like a Harold and Maude riff, where a late life bat mitzvah student falls for her for this younger cantor or rabbi who she's studying with. And I was like, that's a horrible movie. And now that's what we have. But we have the best version of it simply through this process of working out what that could be. And what, Adam is nothing if not persistent. And so COVID hit, and he was still hassling me about this. This was like 2 years of hassling me, right? COVID hit, and he's like, I found some development money. So he partnered up with Layla, and he's like, you need to write something now based on this. I'm like, I have no idea what the hell to do with this. So I enlisted my chief co-writer, collaborator, good friend, great friend, C. Mason Wells, Chris Wells, who's a goy, not a Jew, does not like Harold and Maude. And I was like, this is gonna be the way to get at this movie. Like, we'll find something here. And so the idea of an institution of convention, like we went about it through the characters, like who these people are, how they're fighting for a sense of purpose in life. And how do you find that? And if you're bound to a temple, what does that mean? If you're bound to a house, what does that mean? A relationship, what does that mean? And that was kind of the starting point. So I guess it all comes from that. The whole way this, think about, we're always character first.
Did you talk to your mom about her experience as you were building the character and building the story? Or was it more a sort of a jumping off point that you didn't return to, this true anecdote?
I feel like we had some conversations, but you would have a better sense of that because
Well, I have the conversation where I'm in the car with him and I'm driving, and I say, like, when did you realize it was a B'nai Mitzvah class? And he was like, well, when I came in and then you were sitting there and getting a B'nai Mitzvah with all these older women with you. And it was like, I was as mystified as him. Because literally I was in the class because my friend's partner jumped off the bridge in Rhinecliff, and the rabbi felt that she needed a support group. So she got a few of us older ladies together who had said, well, we would love a bat mitzvah. And she forced us into the situation. We all dropped out, and the one young, brilliant woman, she got hers during COVID. She got her B'nai Mitzvah. None of us did.
So, as you can see, it's all happenstance, really.
Yeah. But we did always talk about getting one, and I did with my older son, just like, because no one in my family, my brothers, my sons, didn't have a bar mitzvah. And my dad, his was to go to a temple, 13 men were there, they had a glass of a shot, whatever they drank, some like vodka, that was his bar mitzvah, that's what it was back then. But I did have a Zaidi who was an old man with a beard, and I remember watching him when he was dead lying on this table. Who was this? We had no religion, no Yiddish, no Hebrew, but my mother knew every Yiddish word if you said it to her. And my dad always spoke Yiddishisms, and my mother would go, why do you sound like a rabbi? Where'd you get it? And I go, from my dad, your husband. So it was like around us. We were taught Jewish values.
And Jewish humor.
A lot of Jewish.
And, I was raised just outside of Boston, in Arlington, Massachusetts, and I was the only Jew in my school. It was Irish Catholic, a dry town at the time, and so, we clung to our, the Judaism, Jewish culture, Jewish humor. Woody Allen, Mel Brooks, Albert Brooks, these were this oasis in the video store in town.
And I did try to get him to go to cradle roll classes in Belmont, Mass with his friends, but he wanted to watch cartoons on Saturday.
That's how I learned to make movies.
I want to dig into the characters because I think the film sings, if you will, through its characters, and they're so vividly realized, and so I think the sort of precision and detail of the characters is what makes the comedy work so well. And I want to ask both Carol and Robert if you were familiar with Nathan's work prior to getting involved, or if it was you were presented with a script and you liked the character, or
Wait a minute, you know what? I can barely hear. Can you say it one more time?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was just curious whether you were, when you came onto this project, were you familiar with Nathan's work, or were you presented with a script that you liked and a character that was compelling to you?
I am always honest about the fact that I initially wanted to be part of this project because I just love Jason Schwartzman.
Good old stuff.
Right? And so that was my initial primary reason for saying yes, please. And then I started watching, Petting My Mother, which is so brilliant. You gotta find it and see it. It's so brilliant. And then I realized what an unusual filmmaker Nathan was. And then we talked about the story. we had a Zoom meeting, because it was COVID time, and me and Nathan and Jason had a rather lengthy Zoom meeting, right? And got to know each other a little bit and the story a little bit, and I kept waiting for the script. The script never came. But by that time, it was too late to back out. So then Chris and Nathan, they would give us pages like the night before, the day before, and then we would start to shoot as written. And then this is my Nathan imitation. Nathan would inevitably say, when we shot it as written, he would say, no, that's not it at all, no. And then we would have to start again and improvise around the lines and around sort of the essence of the scene until he was pleased, and to his credit, he was not easily pleased, which is a very wonderful thing. You know, that is not the road to mediocrity. Being not easily pleased is a good thing, I think. Except it makes you pain in the butt sometimes. Not you, but one.
And Robert, you also wanted to star alongside Jason Schwartzman.
Oh, he's adorable. No, I was intrigued by the fact that Carol and Jason were in it, but also I should say that I don't get offered a lot of. Somebody wants me to be in anything and I don't have to stick my hand up a puppet's ass, I get. So, you know, I'm like, sure, I'll read this. And by then, the process was pretty far along, and they already had what he would describe as a scriptment. It didn't have lines of dialogue, but it was a whole story with a lot of stage direction, and I knew what every scene was, and I kind of recognized that rabbi. Been through a lot of rabbis. And great ones, and a couple a little bit more like that guy. And so yeah, I was also more than happy to take it on because of the script.
I'm curious as to how the comedy of the film sort of comes together, because it's in the performances, it's in the writing, it's also in the editing and the way that the camera moves. And I want to ask all of you if you have any sort of insight into this sort of alchemy that takes place of because it's a hysterically funny movie, and it really almost feels spontaneously funny, even though of course it's very rigorous in its comedy. And so if you could just talk about how you think about whether in a particularly sort of Jewish cultural register of Jewish comedy, or just something more hard to pin down.
Well, I think it was in the scriptment. Chris is an extremely witty writer, so a lot of the witty elements really they come from him. And I feel like we're obsessed with character forward, so it's all about the character, it's not about the joke. So it's like the punchlines might land at weird times, and then our wonderful editor, John, he embraced that. It's not, so he wasn't trying to cut around it. He wasn't trying to cut it for the jokes. He was cutting it for the emotion and trying to give it an unexpected air. And of course, Sean Price Williams, our DP, was reacting to the actors. I call him the great reactor. And I feel like, we're all reactors. I mean, then John's a great reactor. It's like a line of reactors that are reacting to the material, and that goes for the actors too. And so it's not like we're trying to do a sitcom and get the laugh track going or whatever, get the audience to cheer and whatever for us. We're trying to make a story about people on screen, and life is absurd, and that absurdity is funny. Even though it's a tragic life, there's absurdity in there, and that was the goal. I mean, at least from my end, I have no idea being inside of that, how that felt.
I mean, I didn't know exactly what it was going to look like when when we were doing it. I mean, Sean was running around with his camera, and I didn't know if I was being shot close up or anything. When I saw it, I was fascinated by how funny it was in a unique way. I mean, because there's a lot of moments that feel like we're observing them in a way that's detached, and the standard way of doing that for the last 40 years or so, pretty much since like Jim Jarmusch kind of, like just static wide shots, you know, that forced distance and static look that just defines detached observer. And it's very effective at, you know, at being able to laugh outside of the, you know, what's going on with, no matter how emotional or whatever, you're just, you're able to detach. And here you're doing it in a completely different way. These invasive close-ups that are catching people at awkward moments, and it has very similar effect. But it's so original that it really struck me. I was really impressed by that. You know, just a style of comedy that I haven't seen people try. I mean, you know, a lot of people are going to say it harks back to the 70s films, and it does, in terms of the grainy style and the moving camera, and there were many more close-ups, I would say, used back then. But this was something that felt new and exciting to me, it really did. So I commend you and Sean and John. Just what a, and Chris, obviously, what a team, honestly. Give you credit.
Carol, you of course didn't start as necessarily as a comic actor, but you're very much celebrated for your legendary comic roles, and I think that sort of juxtaposition is key to the character of Carla. The fact that you calibrate her sort of eccentricities in such a way that we can laugh with her, we can kind of laugh with Ben, laughing at her, but in a loving way. And it's, I guess, could you just speak about how you calibrated her particularities so precisely that she's, I think, the hero of the film in many ways, as well as being sort of its, the center of its comedic spirit?
You know, I don't think I did calibrate.
Why she's so great. I'm a calibrator, she's Carol.
I don't know, I wouldn't know how to do that. Be in the moment, in the present. And so for me, I mean, I knew what I wanted and needed as Carla, I mean. And then I had this extraordinary good fortune of working with this person who was so honest and who I trusted so much in Jason, you know, and then just sort of looking in his eyes and trying to be honest back, you know, and that is what I think I was doing.
Was it the sort of premise of this relationship and the chemistry between these two characters? Did you find that challenging or in any way sort of a hurdle to overcome, or was it something that emerged as organically and naturally as it does in the film?
Yeah, it did. It sort of was like from the first moment we met, there was some kind of a relationship happening, and right?
I mean, when their faces popped up on my screen in the Zoom session, and they had this like rapid fire back and forth, and I was like, "There's a movie. This is a movie, and it's for me to fuck up. Like, I need like this is everything." So it was there.
You didn't fuck it up.
It's nice of you to say.
I want to leave time for a few audience questions. So if you have one, you can raise your hand. We have some mics that'll be coming around. I see one right here in the front. Right. Yeah, thanks.
There's that scene, I was very moved by the story, by the way. There's that scene when they're drinking the tea, and that presumably has some psychedelic in it, and things start to, blend, and they're talking over each other, and but there were other scenes that felt similar to that when they weren't on any psychedelic. And I guess I was wondering if you gave was there a premise or a direction that you gave to the actors to try and capture that quality of I don't know exactly what that quality is, or if you do, or is it just something Jewish that we all kind of
As John, who's in the audience, our great editor, can attest to, yes.
Stand up. And they also recognize him for punching Jason in the beginning of the movie.
Every audio track is dirty. Everyone's always speaking over each other at all times. So it's not like we're stopping like to get this line or that line. And John was like, I don't know how to make this work. And he worked magic by the end. I have no idea. And you would swap out, he would have, these certain takes for the visual and then swap out the audio, and he would fit that other take into the lips. They would make it work, it would synchronize it. So I think it's about allowing life to happen on set and not stopping and trying to get something clean. And so, the drug scene, that was like a tough thing to shoot because we had one version of it written, which we couldn't do, so we had to rethink it, basically day of. And so we were just like revising, and then we cracked it, and then we had to but it was a bit of we gave John a pile there. There are certain scenes where that happened. That just is natural to this process, Some things go exactly as written, some things go off the rails a bit, and then we build new tracks or whatever. But that's like a testament to it's my insanity to allow people to just talk over each other constantly, and then the producers worrying that there's not going to be any usable dialogue, and then John dealing with that, and then Arjun, our sound designer, basically using that and making it into something else. So.
I guess one right over here on this side.
That's a wonderful movie, and all of you were fabulous, and thank you so much. The scene at the cemetery, can you tell us a little bit more about that? Obviously there's a relationship that Gabby, or Gabai as you call it, was working at, but it was at the cost of his memory of his wife, and being right there at the cemetery. What were you getting at that point?
Well, it's like, the classic, death and sex in Judaism we want to get at, and that scene was very written. So that was basically to script. And that was very early on in the shoot when we were that was the third day, I believe. And I'm amazed at how well it turned out, because after that we started to shift Gabby's character in earlier scenes. It was based on that and the performance she gave. So I guess it's a matter of just what Judaism is all about, embracing the present and being haunted by the past. And there's no heaven, so you're stuck with just upstate New York.
Yeah. No, it's true. And another scene that reminded me of that same Jewish inherent, was just noticing it today. So he's eating the cheeseburger, doesn't know it's a cheeseburger, and that payoff is very funny. But I hadn't the moment where he's talking about his wife dying, to Carol, and then they cut to a close-up as he's doing it. You can really enjoy his hamburger, and I just thought that was so, like, it's funny and this detached, it's like a detached close-up, like I was talking about, but it's also just, it was just such a beautiful encapsulation of what you're saying, just the present, and you know, just what life is. It's like you have pain, and yet you have to move on and enjoy the cheeseburger. With soy cheese, if you're. I thought that was amazing. And original, again, so original.
And I had a cheeseburger tonight. Twice a year, but the way they ate those cheeseburgers was like, oh my God. One of my favorite scenes is when Mildred comes over.
Am I?
Between the cheeseburger and the mudslide, I have to say my dinner menus. I saw a hand right in this. Yeah.
Hi, you mentioned Harold and Maude, and then you also talked a little bit about finding humor in the fact that, like, being alive is agony, but you have to find it funny anyway. I was just wondering, that made me think of so many other films that I feel like are in the same sort of family as this one, and I was wondering what other touchstones other than Harold and Maude you had while you were creating this.
Yeah, so when we started writing this, Chris and I were like, okay, what else is around this? You have The Graduate, you have like The Heartbreak Kid, you then have like All You Fear It's a Soul, like May December Romance kind of thing, which that movie is one of my favorite movies, obviously very different sensibility, but same like sense of these lost souls finding each other, needing each other, and being humiliated for that fact. And then, you know, then you have like Tony Erdman, you have like Marin Otta's take on screwball comedy, then I'm bringing up Baby. Like we started to just track all these things, and we're like, let's make a grounded screwball comedy. What does that look like? How do you actually ground it in character? And Marin Otta does that. And how do you then work with that and use that for something else that's very Jewish, that's like Albert Brooks? Like, what do we do? So that was kind of like the starting point, I guess. And fill it with life, like get that kind of Borzage sensibility in there where it's like you never know what you're gonna get. Dave Lechen, you know, Truffaut, that thing where it's like freewheeling and full of life. Even though it's a despairing story at times, it's just life, energy, chaos, the things we need to be able to go on.
See one up here? Yeah, thank you.
Is this on here? Okay. I was trying to think of this Billy Wilder quote about Jewish humor and irony, but I can't remember it, so. But
Google it for you.
what struck me was the unexpected. You think the thing is going one way, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from under you. And that creates a kind of rhythm that you get serious, and then all of a sudden you're laughing, huge, just laughter. And I was wondering, part of that is the rhythm of the close-ups. You know, they're ungrounded, so you are always moving through there. But how did you, I mean, you've mentioned some of your antecedents, so that's kind of useful. But how did you get that kind of unexpected thing? I mean, it's sort of scripted, but then it's not. It turns into something else. And a lot of the humor comes from that dislocation, I think.
So it starts off with the writing, right? So that's the idea. Then how to actually make that is the thing that you're dealing with the chaos of the set, and then it's then the editor actually embracing what you tried to shoot and looking for the unexpected. I mean, there were so many nights I would leave John behind. It would be like 7 or 8, and he would then edit for another 4 hours or whatever, just obsessing over different possibilities for where the scene could go, finding things that I would never have expected in there, like just elements that, you know, just would pop up. So it speaks to like all the different people who worked on the movie, really, just bringing themselves to this project, and those elements coming together and somehow creating this whole that's unexpected and yet works. Hopefully, like that's the idea, and it's faith in the absurd. It's having hope in a hopeless time, there's a sense that this is not going to work out, and yet maybe it does. And maybe that's what we have to take away from this, that there is hope in hopelessness. There is something to look forward to.
One more question. I see him right here in the front. Here's the mic right there.
What were the first and last scenes you shot in this movie?
It's an incredible question, and the last thing we shot with Carol and Jason was when they pulled up to his old house, and he saw like flashes of his dead wife. The first thing we shot was
Robert and Jason in the sanctuary.
Was that the first thing? Robert and Jason in the sanctuary. Thank you, producer Adam.
That's right.
That's nuts. Jesus, what were we thinking? Well, I mean, it worked out very well. I'm just like, I mean, that's our brilliant AD, Laura Klein. She helped us make this movie because I love Laura. Is Jenna Klein still here?
No, it's closed.
Well, if it were, I would say, well, she AD'd that as well. I mean, she knows what she's doing, and I think Annie Baker loves her as well, and I mean, she's just the best.
We need more AD auteurism, I think. Well,
Can I say one more thing about just, because you talked about transcending convention, and I just, like, as a somewhat observant Jewish person, and we're on the Upper West Side, so I suspect there's some Jews in the audience. I think the movie is a very pro-religious movie. I personally think. I don't think, I work in the show business, and a lot of my colleagues identify as cultural Jews, and it's almost like, I don't believe in the pink guy. And I just feel like sometimes we miss the point. There's so many lessons to be learned from just the essence of Judaism, and I think this movie demonstrates that, and he even describes Carol in one scene as like, in that amazing scene with the chained duck.
The best Jew, I think, is.
Yeah, as an amazing Jew, and that's like, I always say that about my wife because she, is an incredibly generous soul, and I just feel like the movie is all about there have been moments in my life where I got to go to synagogue more than just the high holidays, and I kind of started to really understand that the essence of Judaism is in the Torah. It's all there, and it's all about humility and gratitude at this amazing gift we're given. And you can clap even if you're one person. Anyway, and I really wasn't prepared for the ending when they panned to nature. I mean, what a powerful statement, that after all this confusion, at the end of the day, it's just the awesomeness and the miracle that we're all here. And I just pulled a quote because it's one of my favorite quotes, and it's from Rabbi Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rabbi. I just wanted to read it because it's all about Carol's character. He said, I pulled it because I didn't want to mess it up. If you see what needs to be repaired and how to repair it, then you have found a piece of the world that God has left for you to perfect. But if you only see what's wrong and what's ugly, then it's you, yourself, that needs repair. That's what Tikkun Olam is, fixing the world, and that's what Carol's character represents. So to me, it's very, very, very pro-Jewish, and not to make it like people who aren't Jewish shouldn't. This is a universal message in many religions, but I just wanted to say that because religion, as a comedy writer, I just know what an easy, low-hanging fruit religion is, and I've done it many times. Dogmatic people, give religion a really bad name. They corrupt it, and then they get equally narrow-minded people to just dismiss it as just the cause of all our problems. And there are many beautiful aspects to religion, and I think this movie embodies that. That's all I want to say.
thank you all so much again, and thank you to the film.
Thank you so much.